So today we're going to talk about the product life cycle. And by the end of this PowerPoint, hopefully you will be able to describe and explain what the product life cycle is and understand the different phases of the product life cycle. So to start out with, the product life cycle is basically the stages of the product on the market. And so everything starts with an introduction. So we talked last week about the new product development stages, how you come up with the idea and test it and all of that kind of stuff. Once you've gone through all of those stages, and you put the product out on the market, it enters the product life cycle. So stage one of the product life cycle is the introduction. First hits the market. Then it goes into growth. Customers begin to buy the product. Then it matures. In the maturity stage, sales slow down and level off, and then some products, eventually the sales decline so much that they go away. So this is similar to the life cycle that we as humans go through. We're born, introduction, we grow. As a child, you're growing up. Then you hit maturity, become an adult, and then eventually you get old and you decline. And so it's very similar to that. So before you go on with this, if you could please click on this YouTube logo right here and watch the short video, and then return to the PowerPoint, and you can continue the PowerPoint. So you'll have to pause here for a moment and watch that video and then come back to us. So here is now that you've watched the video, here is a visual of the product life cycle. And it kind of shows you what happens with sales. In the introduction phase, sales are slow because nobody knows about it and they're beginning to find out about it. Once people find out about the product, maybe through a really good promotional plan or something like that, the sales begin to grow. And the growth stage is when your sales are going to have the biggest growth rate. Once you hit maturity, your product's been on the market for quite a while. People know about it. The people who buy it like it. Maybe they're repeat customers. And this is when you're going to have your biggest profit. And then eventually products go into the decline phase. Not all products are going to go into the decline phase. You can probably think of a lot of products such as Coca-Cola that have been on the market for many, many, many years and are stuck here in maturity. That's really where a product or a brand wants. They want to get stuck in maturity for years and years and years. That's when they're going to make a really good profit. So a little more detail on introduction phase. The new product is put into the market for the very first time. It's usually a pretty small market, meaning that not a lot of people know about it. So sales are going to be pretty low. It really could be the most expensive stage because at this stage, that's when all your expenses for the products for product development, all that kind of stuff are going to come into play in this first stage. And so it can be really, really expensive with low sales and low profit. But the hope is you move into growth and maturity and make all that up eventually. So costs of things like research and development, consumer testing, those phases of new product development that we talked about last week, and the marketing that is needed to launch a new product, all the commercials and all of that kind of stuff, packaging, any of that kind of stuff to get people interested in your product is going to be very expensive with low sales and low profits in this stage. Then your growth stage comes around. Sales and profits begin to climb because people start finding out about your product. They've tried it. Maybe they're coming back and repeat purchasing. And so your growth stage, sales and profits are going to begin to grow. And this is the stage that makes it possible for the business to then take some of that profit and that money and reinvest it and maybe have new promotional campaigns or make changes to the products and different things like that to make it more profitable. And then the maturity stage. The product is established and you want to stay in the maturity phase. And so the goal here is to maintain market share. Sometimes companies have to make some modifications or improvements to the product to keep it there. So for example, the iPhone, I know that they come out with you could argue that each iPhone is a whole new product, but it's really a modification or improvement to the iPhone. And so it hopefully stays here in this maturity for a while. If they keep doing a good job of updating the technology and that kind of stuff, iPhone should stay here. It is the most competitive time because this is when other brands, other companies are going to be looking at your brand or your that is in maturity and going, we want to do what they do. And so this is the stage where if you have a product that has maybe needs to have a patent or a copyright or something like that, you're hopefully will have those in place before you hit maturity. Otherwise, other companies are going to come in, steal your idea, and make products just like it, and you could lose some customers that way. So that's the whole goal in maturity, is to keep that market share by keeping your product viable and keeping it up to date. If you don't do that and you aren't able to keep your product in maturity stage, then it's going to go into the decline stage. And that's where the market has just become saturated with a bunch of different competitors. All the customers who are going to buy your product have already bought it, and they're not going to rebuy it because maybe it's outdated technology or it's just not a product that matters anymore. So, like, for example, a typewriter. Nobody uses typewriters anymore. Everybody uses computers. So if you were a typewriter manufacturer and you did not get into computers, you probably don't have a business anymore because your product went away. So it becomes outdated or obsolete. And so those are our 4 stages. Introduction. And again, the introduction phase starts at the end of the new product development stages. So in the last PowerPoint, when we talked about the 6 stages of product development, the last stage of product development is to put the product on the market. So really, that's the first phase of the product life cycle. And then you grow, hopefully. Not all products make it here. Some get here and never do well, and so they go away before they ever get here. Every product on the market goes through the product life cycle at its own pace. There's no set time that everything goes through it in 10 years or anything like that, because again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you want your product to get stuck in maturity. And so Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you could probably think of a lot of other brands or products that are here and we're going to plan to be around for a long, long time because they are just something that people want to keep repeat buying. And that's the goal, is to get here. If not, your product declines and goes away and you pull it off the market and you put something new out in its place. And that is the stages of the product life cycle. There is another short YouTube video right here that I would ask you to please watch that explains just a little bit more, a little bit different way about the product life cycle than the video you watched before. This information is really important for your final project.